probably a little bit more squared tonight, but we'll see what happens. We'll let the folks kind of get situated and settled, and we'll get to the business at hand. As I put it in my description, we'll be talking about everything from the what do you call it, the brawl in Montgomery to some of the other stuff, and we'll go with it from there. Might check. Come on. Check. Hope everybody can hear me tonight, and we'll get into we'll get into one. I hope we have a pretty good show tonight. I think things are going to be kind of interesting, especially considering everything that went on in Montgomery and some of the other things that are going on with me as far as some of my court cases as well. So we'll get to a lot of that today, or some of it today. I do have some work to do since I have taken up a I guess I won't call it gainful employment, but I have committed my services, so I'm going to stay true to that. Get everybody to come on in. Let's have a conversation. And by the way, even though I did have that. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Greg Dawson DJ Squid Show. I think we have a slight issue. I'm about to hopefully straighten that out. Let me see what we got going on. And I hope that everybody's getting the right feed. I'll put this in here and see what we got going on. But naturally, we got to talk about the most talked about situation in America, at least on social media, which is the incident that took place this Saturday in Montgomery. Listen, people, I don't know about some of y'all, but that was one of the most proud moments that I could say that I've ever had in my life. And you know, the thing that makes it most proud is the fact that the people, the community stood up. And I'm gonna say this. Now, I'm here in Tampa, Florida, for those who don't know, and I'm gonna tell you something. I'm not advocating violence or what have you, but I want there to be I want my Montgomery crowd here in Tampa. Now, we don't have to jump up and act, and hopefully we ain't got to jump on nobody, but I need cats to show up like that, especially cats who may otherwise, people who do a lot of barking. We need more biters. We need more people who will stand up for the community. And again, I want to make sure I make it clear, I'm not hoping to have any violent outbursts or people getting jumped on, but that was kind of refreshing. They swung and asked questions later just based upon what we all noticed took place. And I'm sure there's some layers to what have you when it comes to that situation. But for one, the person parked his boat where his boat shouldn't have been parked, didn't want to move the boat, and then responded in a less than professional manner to the security guard. So, hey, listen, I've seen a lot of beatdowns, but that was an Avengers Assemble moment. 319-527-6090 if you want to join the show. 319-527-6090. If you want to speak or comment on anything, make sure you press the number 1. And if you again, anything we want to talk about today, by the way, it's supposed to be an open show, but I forgot about open topic show, but I forgot about this incident for just a slight moment because we talked about it last night on Chop Shop in depth. And I think yesterday was supposed to be another versus for trends, fashion, and what have you, as we get coming close to celebrating 50 years of hip hop music. If you get a chance, every Monday night at 6:30 or so, you can check me out as in my alter ego as Ruff on the Chop Shop show, and you can also check us out on WEDZ Radio on Facebook. Go check us out, and we have an ongoing radio station platform. So, and we got some other things coming up in the near future. If Heavy's out there listening or jumps in, he can tell you a little bit more about it. But at any rate, I was watching a little bit of the television today, and apparently a lot of arrest warrants have gone out for the young men, and I'm pretty sure some women and older people who took a part in that melee over in Montgomery. And one of the things that I was going to talk about is there's some historical relevance involved with this situation out there in Montgomery, and particularly what is known as the cradle of the Confederacy. And I know a lot of us are now turning our eyes to Montgomery, but at one time, Montgomery was Montgomery was the capital of the Confederacy. And Jeff Davis's first home, so to speak, or the first White House of the Confederacy was in Montgomery, Alabama. Of course, I've said before, I got my formative education on the plantation home of Jefferson Davis Boulevard in Biloxi, Mississippi, but he definitely had other residents in Montgomery. Again, 319-527-6090. I see people popping in there. Press the number 1 if you have a comment. I think I got the co-host hopping on. Cerebral Thoughts, what's going on, man? Can you all hear me up, by the way, on Blog Talk? I know I've been hearing that Blog Talk has had some difficulties. Can you all hear me on Blog Talk? Okay, all right. Oh, yeah. We can hear you hopefully pretty well. I can hear you very well. So tell me, so what's been going on, man? Hey, the memes for this thing have been going crazy. I've seen all kinds of stuff, all over the place. I like and actually I use one in my shows, in my what do you call that thing I put together, my little reel, with the Avengers Assemble thing where the guys are walking through the circles. Because I can tell you, I'm positive that no one saw that coming. That's like one of them stink meaner boondocks moments. Grandpa, you didn't see that ass whooping coming. I'm positive that nobody over there saw that ass whooping coming. So, um, I want to ask you a question, CT. Do you think there's going to be, and I want to make sure I caution everybody out there as well as we did last night on the show. Certain folks don't take L's very well. So I'm going to tell everybody out there, no matter what your city or what your state, be careful and watch for the hook. Be careful of the setups. So everybody's going to be looking for a get back, and make sure that situations that look a certain way, you don't just jump into because they may be taken as an opportunity to try to get back. Hold on, CT. We actually got a hand up early. 319-527-6090. 319-527-6090. That looks like well, actually, you don't know where anybody's calling from. Last four, 1759. What's your name? Where you calling from? Welcome to the Greg Doll Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What did you think about the way they responded? Did they look like to you like to me? They responded as if that was one of those, we've been waiting for an opportunity. Right, right. Because there was a lot of restraint. That's an interesting point, and again, they did show an awful lot of restraint when it came to that. And you're right, and it did look bad at first glance, but I'm telling you, it's hard to get not to take any comedy out of it, because the homeboy took the hat off and tossed the hat up in the air. I don't know if that was a signal to the cavalry or what it was, but one thing was for sure, he was ready to bump and do some work, and he went to work as best as he could. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the 16-year-old youngster that hopped in the water and got his Subman or Aquaman on to come in and join into the fray. That cat really wanted some work. He was really ready to go, and I tipped my hat to him. Apparently, the young man he worked for the dock. Today he said he was hopping in to help his coworker. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I don't think so either. Oh, absolutely. We can't pretend that things don't work the way that they normally work. But I do think that it's going to turn out pretty positive overall for the people that were the only one. The one I think is going to catch the worst of the brunt of all the legal troubles is the brother with the chair when he hit the woman when she was down. He was indiscriminate about who's going to get that chair. Hey, I'm just saying that's the only one I can see having an issue, because bruh, he swung that chair like he was trying to hit home run number 752 or something, because he wasn't playing. He wasn't playing, and he even chased him. He showed up with legitimate intentions, and so did a couple of the cats from the cavalry, who must have had an eye on somebody who was trying to sneak the security guard, because man, a couple of them cats really put some hammers on a couple of them dudes. I think I probably should try to. Well, I think the reason there was no shooting in the beginning is because I believe of the location, and they were already at the riverfront park. So I think that had that been in any other section of the park where there would have been closer access to vehicles, there's no telling. I don't know what Alabama's gun laws are. I'm not familiar with them, but I'm pretty sure that nobody actually got like on the boat or what have you having a weapon, because that could have went really left. Even the pontoon itself, nobody on the pontoon had a gun, so that would have made it interesting. But would have been another consequence of that is if one person has a gun, you don't know who might pull out something, because almost everybody's packing in 2023. But I am glad there was no shooting. I saw another hand up. We're good. Hey man, it's like now that's going to be real. Now that's actually interesting because, and again, I don't have enough of the details, and I don't know what the how certain Alabama laws may read or what have you. But I don't know if even if Alabama has a stand your ground law or how that works if a person's actually employed at the time that they're accosted. This thing can go a whole bunch of different places. But the one thing I do know is that the gentleman who was a part of the fray is actually a restaurant owner. I'm not going to say the name of their restaurant because one, they're not paying me, and two, I don't want to give them any unnecessary publicity. Not that I'm famous, as I've already uh, mentioned, when it came to the email situation. But hold on right there for a second there, UB. I got another caller there on. I think that's out of Washington. I'm gonna bring you back on, UB. Area code last four is 8852. What's your name? Welcome to the Greg Dawes Show, and I'm sure you have some comments as well. What's going Listen, it's 2023. I respect that, but it's 2023. Once that thing hit national media, there's cameras all over that place. So not just the videos that were shared from cell phones. Don't forget that it's a public place, so there's cameras at a multitude of angles. I was watching television today, and they brought on the mayor, and they also brought on I guess he's the chief of police or the sheriff of the area, and they were talking about the number of arrest warrants that have already gone out for people that were there. So, and I wanted to say this: we're in 2023. Facial recognition is in most major cities, and it's almost impossible to what's the term, fly under the radar. I don't think that flying under the radar is even possible in 2023. Even I'm sure even the Amish have multitudes of eyes on them, and I say that with all sincerity. And I understand people's what they call their, people might believe is their right to privacy and what have you. But don't forget, when you go into a space that, or a public space, you don't have an expectation of privacy. At least that would be Florida law, or a place that's well traveled. You wouldn't have an expectation of privacy. So the fact that they are actually filming that area, that's what's going to happen. I think that in again, you can always dictate your action. You can never determine somebody else's reaction. And I believe that the individual who decided to, and I don't even know if they were intoxicated, but I know they got arrested, but their reaction was based upon something. Their initial action to the gentleman asking them to move was based upon something that was probably more deeply seated, because they had to recognize that they were improper to park there. It's not like that's something that would be new. If you see major vessels coming in and out of that area, and I'm sure there's some set of rules for boat parking, what have you, that the individual who chose not to respond to the gentleman's instructions to move his boat, he was kind of wanting something. They thought something was going to happen. They just didn't think that was going to happen. I don't know, because there's a couple of things that there's too many factors, too many what if factors. One, there's no, because one, I don't know the guy, except for I saw his comments. The owner of the restaurant's comments about whose uh, patronage he didn't need at his restaurant. I think that might have just been a response to what has turned out to be a pretty bad publicity issue for him. But I already know that Alabama's general population can come in and support him. I don't know how his demographics of customers are, but I'm going to say this: don't know for sure that he would have responded that way if the security guard wasn't black. So there's too many things. And I don't know either, and I don't know the guy who initiated the contact or confrontation based upon the instruction. I don't know him that well. But one thing we do know is that the way that police tend to respond in this country to the different races is also very different. In other words, had that been you that grabbed the security guard, the level of violence enacted against you might have been just as severe or not more severe. There's too many other factors. One, they might have just wanted to whip your ass, just in general. And I think really had it been just a one-on-one, everybody would have been okay. I think most people would have been okay and might have just tried to break it up. I believe, and anybody who may have a difference of opinion, please either text or text, hit the chat, either on my YouTube live or Facebook, or you can just call the show 319-527-6090, 319-527-6090, and share your opinion. I just am not sure that if it had just stayed a one-on-one, if people would have responded the same way. And hopefully that makes sense to you. In other words, I believe that the outcome, I believe the outcome was based upon what appeared to be several individuals taking advantage of a situation, and the crowd wasn't with it. You get it? Right. Well, actually, from the well, also don't forget. I think. Well, I don't know about that. Well, yeah, and actually, and hold on. Actually, there was a view from the ship where they were telling them to move, but the people docked the boat and then left the boat unattended. Right, right. Well, right. And again, you could. Well, there's a couple of things that are at play as well. They also swung on the other guy that was working on the dock, the young white man. I think they gut punched him and he ran away. So don't forget that the first young white man with the blue shirt on, he also worked the dock. Aquaman is also Aquaman Aquaman was also a dock worker. Right. Absolutely. They need to get that cat a scholarship somewhere. Get him a scholarship somewhere because he hit that water with like no hesitation. So and again, I would just caution my people, as much as it's funny and it was a great feeling. And again, people who don't understand, and actually where that riverfront dock was at one time used to be a major slave trade. That river was a place where they did major slave trade in the Confederate South. A lot of people may not know that. So Montgomery has a storied history. Right. Right. And also, not only did they do a lot of slave trading there, they actually warehoused slaves there. And I know there, you mean like slow, you mean right at the Reconstruction is what you're talking about. During what would have been post Reconstruction, which didn't last long because of, Taft Hill and what have you, but we can get into that later. But you're absolutely correct. And a lot of things that we seem to want to get away from as far as discussions about history. And when people see us at the city council meeting, my man Crunk, I don't know if he's on or not, but he speaks a lot about reparations and what the actual price should be. I made a mention some years ago, a couple weeks ago, that the argument about reparations for everybody who's a descendant is a difficult argument because reparations tend to go to those who survive. But when it comes to the argument of people who may have survived Jim Crow, oh, there's a whole lot of people that could be entitled to something, and that would be something that was state sanctioned and state sanctioned against people who were citizens that did not receive the full protection of citizenship. Because by then the Constitution had been fully ratified. And Jim Crow, by the way, for those who don't know, slavery essentially and Jim Crow essentially didn't end to roughly around 1975 or so. Some are going to try to pin it on the passage of the Civil Rights Act, but those of us who are definitely reasonably informed, and I'm not going to let y'all put it out in your school, know that the Civil Rights Act didn't really end anything. It just may have provided some sort of consequence for those who may have violated fundamental quote unquote civil rights, which is kind of ridiculous because of the passage of the 14th Amendment, that you would even need an act to explain to people that you can't do things to people who are citizens of the United States. That's a different discussion. But if you look at the timeline, plenty of people lived through a time where you could be terrorized in this country and it be state sanctioned, and the United States government, although they had the power, did not intervene to limit that kind of behavior. Because the United States government easily could have just stopped segregation the way that they ultimately did using the Commerce Clause of the First Amendment. Of Article 1, the Commerce Clause of Article 1. There's a little bit of history for those, or some civics for those who may not remember how certain things happen. And I'm not going to let everybody take a shot at the education systems. I think some of the education systems should begin. Most education systems are supposed to begin at home. So there's that part there. 319-527-6090. 319-527-6090. If you have any thoughts and or comments. But I appreciate you, UB, for dropping that knowledge about the history of the South. And it's amazing that there's so many people in the South who act as if the South's history is very old. I was born in the watershed year of 1968 in Warner Robins, Georgia. So by the time I got to Mississippi in 75 or so, if you think that any remnant of of an ideology or a mentality was gone, you're crazy. And in fact, I sent you a video, right, Savion, the one about the incident that happened in the with the Navy. And I don't know if that video even exists on YouTube. So I'll look it up, and so I can let everybody watch it. It's like a 7-minute clip of the racism that military men were facing, even in the military. And my dad's told me quite a few stories about some of the stuff that really went on in the military, especially when it came to getting promoted initially, because he's a part of the first wave of black soldiers, or he's actually in the Air Force at the time, when the Air Force opened up testing to everybody, and black men were starting to get promoted, and the first thing the Air Force thought was that they were cheating or something. And so there's some other stories that he told me about what they noticed as people who were involved with the Air Force or members. They started seeing like E3s of UB that might be 35. You know they were setups, they were CID or whatever Air Force's version of the CID is. So Criminal Investigation Division, for those who don't know. So there's a lot that goes on that it's almost as if we've been cut off from history. I don't know if, I had the benefit, and I thank God that I have my father still, but there's some stories that have been passed down to me that I make sure I let my kids be aware of, that we need to have more people discussing some of the stuff that has really happened to us throughout history. Y'all dig? Yeah, that clown. And I guess well, I wanted to make sure I made that clear last week. We didn't benefit at all from slavery. So, hey, and I definitely want to make sure I let everybody know that. That cat's ambition. Anybody that ambitious, just which is what one of my main reasons with Donald Trump is. Anybody that ambitious is actually dangerous, because at the end of the day, all they want is the end goal. And when there's no real rhyme or reason to it beyond what their affiliation is, that's more of an indication as to where your society is, because the leadership is a reflection of those who send them there. And, and I want to say this as well. Exactly. But I want to make people aware of this also. Anybody, and I mean this in all sincerity, anyone who is okay with you being dumb is somebody you should probably be kind of leery of. Anybody that's trying to make people less informed is a dangerous individual. Frederick Douglass said it, knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. Okay? But he also said power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and never will, right? So just keep these things in mind. I'm not just speaking on the issue of black or white. I mean, information is information, and how your ability to digest that information is ultimately what's going to be determinative of how your life moves on from there. And for most of us who have a little bit of age on us, because beyond, I don't know what my listening audience is now, but when I was actually DJ Squid, most of my audience, because of course the nature of the conversation, the genre was different. It was going to be more female and be more younger people, because I did more stuff about relationships and all that kind of stuff that I don't really care about now to that degree. But people did not don't spend as much time becoming informed today when you have access to information. And yet they'll tell you what somebody didn't teach you, which, I always like to rebut with, nobody taught you how to, for those who do this, nobody taught you how to cut bricks, move weight, knock nobody in the head, pull off capers and anything else, and you figure that out. Personal accountability is important. And I say this because I really am concerned about the generations that come behind me. I know I got a lot more in my rear view, at least of quality of life, even if I live to be 110, which would be double my age. I have a lot more in my rear view than I have down the road. And but you younger people need to really become more informed, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the reasons that some of this legislation has gone on is because some of these people think they're coming back, because it's almost as if they're setting up to be here again, and to be in a world, or a nation at least, that more resembles a nation that should be a time long ago. Because, and I say that because let's not forget, segregation was the law. Jim Crow was the law, meaning your lawmakers passed legislation that said these were the rules. You know, you had to, if you're a black man, you need to step off the curb if a white person is walking towards you. And let me tell you something. What's it called? Oh goodness, it's interracial marriage is what it is. But misogyny. There were misogyny laws that went on for a long time, and I know people are familiar with what's the Loving case out of Virginia, that essentially where the Supreme Court says that a person can marry whoever they want to. Because for those who don't know, right, you boxing fans should know what got Jack Johnson in trouble. And I think it got Chuck Berry in trouble and carrying her across state lines. I think carrying him across state lines, right? Right. Yeah. So I think a part of that reason is that the Supreme Court's decision in Loving, and also because of the Commerce Clause again in Article 6, making the federal Constitution applicable to the states in the 14th Amendment as well. But it makes it more difficult to do these things and you not have some sort of repercussion. So even if the state did something to you, the federal law would trump and then hopefully help you out. Even if the state wanted to argue that would be a police power. So, and again, this is not legal advice. Anybody wants legal advice. In fact, I forgot to even get that disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. Don't have a license to practice law. I do not practice law. What I've done is study the law and tell people what I've learned and how I gather the information. I do not give information as advice to apply to my specific case, but it's general information, or your specific case, but it's general information regarding the law and lawful principles which do belong to the people. Please use any information obtained for educational edification only. And the reason that I say that is because I want nothing I say to be construed to be legal advice. If you feel you need legal advice, I would highly encourage you to hire a licensed and hopefully competent attorney, and not one of the 500 bar associated attorneys that get disbarred every year, or the 6,000 that get a complaint filed on them every month and be legally advised. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you all for joining the show and listen at your own peril, I guess. But with that being said, we can move forward. 319-527-6090. 319-527-6090. Any thoughts and or comments, make sure you press the number 1 and we can bring you on board. We're simulcast to Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Blogtalk Radio. I know for sure those 3. And if there's a slight delay, I apologize. I haven't figured out how to really sync up all this stuff. Well, somebody say something? Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Oh, hold on. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not that old. Wait a minute. I know the history. I didn't live through, I mean, I may have been born into the end of it, but I'm born after the Civil Rights Act is passed. I'm born after 1964. I just happen to have I have knowledge of the situation. I'm like, you about as bad as my kids. That kid asked me if I had served in Vietnam. No, what's wrong with you? No, I'm not that old. And that right there is more of an indication as to how disconnected people may be from how, chronology. Well, you don't want to call it history, call it the chronology of existence. Think about that. I'm 55, not 85 or 75. 55 years ago, 1968. I was born almost a month before the assassination of Dr. King. And yes, but laws change with each passing legislation, whether it's at the local level, city, county, or at the state level, and at the federal level. You're talking about different governments. When you hear states talk about states' rights, most of those states' rights issues were related to uh, when that's code for saying we want to go back to when we had a segregated South, and that happened because the federal government, after the assassination of President Lincoln, chose to not further Reconstruction. Now, I don't want to give a history lesson here, but because I know that you all learned this stuff in school. When Johnson took over after Lincoln, I don't know if anybody out there is listening, 319-527-6090, who may be under, yes, I'm saying, who's under the age of, say, 30, right, UV? Because a lot of this, like, the idea of Reconstruction being lost. So a lot of times you hear people throw out, well, after what's up, Will? You hear a lot of people say stuff like what they didn't learn and what didn't happen, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Reconstruction was a component that came after the Civil War ended, and what Reconstruction was designed to do was to bring everybody from the South back into unison with the North, to include the newly freed slaves. And as a condition, or as a like a byproduct of agreeing to accept I think it's the 1860, the subsequent election they had Taft elected, they agreed to allow the South to essentially remain somewhat splintered. Because I don't want to get into the nuanced detail of it. It would be easier if everybody just studied it, or we just had a show and I broke it down and I could just give you all a slight history lesson. But I think that if you're telling me that people under 30 didn't learn this in school, this is not civics. This is just basic history. And I thought they still teach uh, United States or American history. I'm not sure. Me, me or UV. Well, we learned phonetic. We learned sight words. I got somebody coming on with y'all to hold on a second. As soon as he presses the number one, I can bring him in. But we learned phonetically, and then we had our sight words. But we also knew curses. But hold on, I got the pioneering founding member of Chop Chop, and the first brawler, community brawler in HCC history. We're now beyond the statute of limitations. What's going on, Heavy? Me? I don't know if anybody is from Georgia, unless it's UB, but hold on. UB, you're not from Georgia, right? Well, that might be a little different. Now, I did go to elementary, and I did do 1 year, I believe, in elementary, and well, actually maybe a little more than 1 year in Warner Robins when my dad was stationed in Thailand. We came back from Columbus, and actually, oddly enough, me and my mother had the same teacher. Uh, whatever the number of years difference it was, which is, I think that might have been intentional because I knew she would tell my mom on me. But anyway, I want to get into that. But go ahead, Harry. And, which is shocking to me. Right. Right. So dramatically. Yeah. It was 90. Yeah. I mean, do you know what that would do to the grade averages? The GPAs of most people that would have graduated in the 80s goes up by almost a whole, probably a half a percentage point, if not better. Because I think it was 94 to 100, 87 to 93. I want to say 70. Yeah, right. But that's an A. But you think about it, you have a lot of people who had like now an 80 would be a B. You know how many people that have that 86 is that was when I was a senior. That was when I was a senior. So again, if we had the same scale, no, you feel you got an F, right? Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you something. Well, I'm gonna say this also. I believe in my heart of hearts that the way that the sports were in middle school and what have you, I think it's really necessary because when you couldn't play Pee Wee if you were, oh, I don't know about Pee Wee, but when I got to middle school, it taught you how to be eligible. And so there was already a standard. And it was a 2.0, I believe, even then. I can't remember I don't know what the basic may have been, but I think it was like 2.0 for the coaches or what have you. I've never had a coach that thought it was okay to have a 1 point whatever. And I'm going to say this, piggybacking on what we talked about last night on the Chop Shop show. And I'll let Dale break down what we do on Mondays and also about WEDZ Radio. I did not even pay as much attention back in 1984 and 85 when I was playing at the University of Thomas Jefferson High School on Cypress Street in Tampa, Florida, that I had an all-black coaching staff. And one thing about Jefferson, and for those in Tampa, you all may not like it, but I really don't care. Like my man, the only captain I have left, unfortunately, Eric Trigg will say is, I don't make the facts, just go look it up. We had educators who demanded of you, and I'm talking about Coach Nelson, Coach Mack, the late Coach Barnes, who the park is named after, Al Barnes, uh, Coach Hub, who I would run through a wall for, and Coach Dawson. We had Coach Nagel, but essentially had an all-black coaching staff, and they were all educated people because I believe at one time, I don't know, Daryl, you say now it's the same thing. Everybody had to have a degree to teach or something. It was or everybody on the staff taught somewhere. I don't know if that was just coincidental and coach pulled them out that way. I don't know if Rev is listening tonight, but he could probably speak a little bit more to it. But we had an educated coaching staff, and they were all black. When I was in Biloxi, Mississippi, I remember Mr. Howard and Mr. Burney. I don't know if they're still with us. I need to probably find out, but I'll reach out to some of the people in Biloxi. But I had the benefit of having um, black men as teachers, and I still remember them to this day. And I don't even remember everybody I had. I remember Mrs. Hurley, Mrs. Sullivan, Miss O'Keefe from Fernwood, Mr. Lasky, because he was, and I remember Mr. Lasky and Miss Sullivan, Miss Hurley and Sullivan, the older Miss Hurley, is because of the fact that they were all history. So, and I didn't even have the propensity in history or government that I have, now, but I still remember them because they mattered and they put things out there, and I didn't take advantage of my academic opportunities at all. I mean, I was not that great of a student, and I tell people I didn't make the honor roll, so I got to college. But the reality was we were not allowed just to be okay with being subpar. And don't forget, we're not inferior people any damn way. So anybody that thinks that, you can kiss my ass. Okay, we've never been inferior, and history shows you that. We haven't been perfect, but we damn sure ain't inferior. 319-527-6090, 319-527-6090. Heavy, tell them about what we got going on, WEDZ Radio and Chop Shop. And the trivia show coming up. And the trivia. It's turned out. Hey, don't forget to tell me the trivia either, Daryl. Don't forget the trivia. Geography, yeah, no doubt. Appreciate you stopping by, bro. That's real. 319-527-6090, 319-527-6090. Appreciate having you for stopping in. I don't know if I thought I saw Will a couple numbers pop in here. Yeah, now I get you back on, Savion. What's going on? Hmm. Right. Well, like with everything, once you start to peel the layers back, most things become more clear. Unless you're peeling back the layers of an onion and your eyes water. But generally speaking, you peel back the layers, things become more clear. And you know, we can only speculate right now, and I try not to do that, particularly because of what I do as a, I don't know if you call it a hobby. It's definitely not a profession necessarily, but what I've learned by being this involved, let's say even in my paralegal sense, not just my personal sense, but what I'm learning operating as an independent paralegal. Um, there's a lot more that goes on with anything than what is in it was on the surface. So I tell people to be really careful about how you view things, especially when it comes to law. As it relates to history, you should probably be a little bit more mindful because a lot of people uh, are putting in a lot of effort at keeping things hidden that we have video of. We're not talking about videos that have been, modern videos, which you may have a hinge or tinge of tampering. We're talking about things that, like, you remember Eyes on the Prize, right? Do they still play that in school for kids? Okay, I thought UB's on it. Yeah, but you remember it though, right? CT. Do they, Savion? Do they play Eyes on the Prize? Did they ever play that in school for you, or did you ever watch any of the series of Eyes on the Prize? Oh wow. Roots doesn't play anymore in schools or in I saw Roots came out when I was in Mississippi. Wow, that's interesting. But we know it exists. The what? Oh, I'm not even familiar with how that works. Like my, well, I left education. I left the education system, I believe, in 90. I want to say I left the education system in 95 when I went to UPS. But I was not aware that, and again, I had to, I'm thankful for Calvin and Queenie because that university was the toughest and the roughest that I could have gone to when it comes to expectations. Even though I didn't necessarily produce as well like I probably could have. Like I'm not even ashamed to say I'm actually the least um, credentialed individual in my immediate family, and which is another reason why I told people last night on the other show that I'm gonna scale back at GDNAPSC because, and as you know, the reason now, UB, things are starting to happen a little differently. Plus, I need to focus on cases that I have going on, and I don't have a problem doing what I do for the firms, but I have goals that I want to accomplish too. Plus, I'm going to have two doctors that are my children. In fact, my daughter's about a year away from being a doctor, and I have a son that's getting ready to be a doctor. So, there's some things I need to accomplish. Even, and I wanted to do this even before they came along. So, uh, I don't want to be the dumbest person in the family. So, and I think it's about getting the standard. Even if it's not about what your academic capacity is, it shows that you can start. You can start something, continue doing it, and do it until it's completed. And that's just what fruition is about. It's kind of like what I tell people about the legal system. You have to start it, you have to continue it, and you want to try to see it through to the end. It's a battle of attrition, and that's all. And that's what a degree signifies. You started something, you completed something, and depending on where you get that academic accomplishment, it gives you a unique network or fraternity that you're forever a member of, because those sheepskins matter. Nah. And we had to deal with you. We had to deal with you because the government said we did. I wanted as a military recruiter on because I know that the criterion for getting in the military is definitely elevated from my understanding. I'm not saying that the quality of people joining is better, but you have to be a little bit more qualified even to get shot nowadays, which is kind of strange to me. Um, as far as the military. Oh, absolutely. No, no. But that's still a diploma, though, right? That's still a diploma. That's still a diploma. And also this part right here though, let's not act as if you go to get a CDL, that's a class, that's a course. That's still a diploma of sorts. And you're going to still have to work with some of the foundational skills and tools that you're going to get normally in a school system, because you still have to be able to read. Not initially. And that's an important point right there. So when you say moving toward the field, but when you say moving toward the field, that's still learning, bro. That and by the way, even in these fields, the people who control the field, but no, but the people who control the fields control the rules to get into the field. Well, listen, if you strive for mediocrity, you'll get there. I've always said that if you strive for mediocrity, you're gonna get there. And the other part is we pay too much attention to the exceptions, don't pay attention to the rules. There could be an exception to everything. No, he's gone. And I think sometimes we don't. We what we might tend to be moving now on is just because they don't show you what they are doesn't mean that they're not who they are. They have to be. They're a little bit more. A lot of things operate a little bit more covertly now, but it doesn't mean that it's not operating. It's kind of like oh, what's his name? I can't think of him. The one that came up with the Southern strategy. He said, at one time you could just say nigga. Now you can't say nigga no more. You have to say this. Man, somebody look up Southern strategy. But at any rate, and some people may not know about this, but they changed the language and the narrative because it didn't feel good. It take a line of rhyme that ain't mine from UB. You might look for the feel good. These same people still exist today. It's ridiculous to think that they don't. It's Listen, one thing about power, it concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, it never will. Ain't nobody trying to give up their comfortability. And if we walk around thinking it's going to happen, you're crazy. Thank you. Jane Elliott did that, right? Yeah, everybody that has that lip service to give, ask if they trade places with you. They're going to tell you hell no. As a matter of fact, might want you arrested for even challenging with that foolishness. And right. But when the mediocre child becomes an adult who's mediocre, if he has name connection, and let me tell you something, peonage is still strong. Not peonage, nepotism is still strong in this country. See, the ones who got the right names and the right connections, even if they're lesser than, they can get into certain positions. And they're going to still have the same kind of conversation and issue the same dialogue that those who may have actually earned something, and many of them probably didn't, because we talk about legacy. They don't like to get into this legacy stuff that you get stuff simply because of your name. The same ones who may condemn other people who get something for any other set of reasons. They don't want you talking about, well, you know, my family owned it. That don't mean you worth the shit. But if you have name, or if you have name or legacy, or they just somebody puts you there, that's just how this thing works. Let me tell you something. Ain't nobody rich or nobody very comfortable trying to trade places with anybody broken down. They may talk that good shit, but they ain't thinking about doing that. Period. And it's that level of expectation of people giving a damn that I'm concerned about the next generation with. Because if they just shut it down, there's going to still be a system and a rule. Or you're going to have Mad Max Thunderdome going on, and nobody want that. Never have. Not at all. And there's plenty of conversations that go on behind closed doors. Hey, I tell people I was a spook that had the ability, who had an opportunity to sit by the door. Um, I was raised in suburbia America, especially in Mississippi. I lived there, and one of the things I tell people about going to the courtrooms, I was never afraid of them other people. I just didn't have the information. When I had the information, I just became more of myself. My man Dev from Pro Player Development to tell you, you know, he can swing a bat. May not be at the same velocity and what have you as he used to, but he teaches people how to swing a bat. Certain things, once you get that skill and you can become yourself, no matter where you are, you're going to be who you are. And it's no different if I'm on a football field. I might be able to speak okay on the radio or what have you, but you know, on a football field, especially, you know, once I got to the height of my ability, I was like, you just can't cover me. This shit ain't gonna happen. It doesn't change the other stuff of who I am, but the conversation may be different in different arenas, which is what UB is telling you. Trust me, when they go home and they get around the old guard or their old guard, the conversation is typically going to be a lot different than it is around the general public. Period. Rich people ain't trying to trade places, and y'all go watch that movie Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, right? And Jamie Lee Curtis. Say the rich people ain't trying to trade places with your ass, bro. And also poor people who have been given some of the niceties of life, who may look like you, will sell you for their own comfortability. Don't get disillusioned, man. There's some stuff going on here, and a whole lot of it. We got about 7 minutes, and I'm going to get up off here. I did receive a late brief from the appellate attorneys in my case against the Tuckers, so I'm going to look at it. I glanced over it earlier today. I'll get into it and read it in depth. I got a couple other things to go on. I'm still waiting for some results from my federal cases, and I actually had to amend my complaint in one of my federal cases to include the state, not Mr. Foster. And I think I have another case. So I got. Oh, to say this also. It was brought to my attention. Let me get my notes. And for those who watch me in my appearances at the city council meeting, y'all know my new friend Crunk, man. Who Crunk is off the chain. But anyway, Crunk, he said something to me. He said, "You know why they still? Because in Hillsborough County, we still have child support Zoom meetings." I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, I don't have this issue, but he's like, do you know why they have child support Zoom hearings?" And I said, "I don't know. I didn't think about it. They don't want nobody to bump into you. They don't want anybody else to be influenced." And a lot of this comes to that 7,000 emails, a minimum of 7,000 emails through a cursory search. Trust me. And I don't need to be famous. I'd rather them just cut me a goddamn check. But if they have 7,000 emails on somebody who's not very well known, I'll say this again. Everybody out there who may think they're somebody, you might want to be asking your city council meeting, your city council, or just put in a public records request. Even if you don't go to city council, put in a public records request to your authorities and find out how many emails they have on you. And you be my consultant legal guy, or not legal guy, consultant guy that has some information about the law. Those 7,000 emails should have came out in 2017, right, UB? Some portion of them at least, in my original request for discovery. The fact that they withheld them is very troubling. Yep. Yeah, but I expected it. Right. I got my man Dev on the phone, and I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't a baseball guy. Dev could have really was really a good athlete. I couldn't have been a manager because I look at how the umpires move that strike zone from time to time, and I lose my goddamn mind. Okay, I just didn't, it just aggravates me. And I'll tell this story before we get out of here. I went to go watch the Rays play. The Rays were playing the Braves, and this is when they had Greg Maddox. And Heavy's off here, but he said, Doss, once Blue gives him that mark, he just can play with that mark all day long. And I was up there with one of my homeboys, and he's like, Doss, it's called location, location, location. And I'm sitting right behind, not directly behind home plate, but behind home plate and up three levels, and I can see where the ball is going. And I'm like, he's painting I won't say 6 inches, but he's damn sure off the black. They just break the rules, but if they let him do it, what are you gonna do about it? If what's up, Joe? What's up, Fi? Hey, listen, if they let you take an extra step, hey, they let you do it, James Harden. They let you do it. If you can get outside of your core, your base, when you cross over, AI, which is different than Tim Hardaway's crossover to some extent, they let you cup it a little bit. That's who you are. But then when they decide to call it, you're like, well, damn, what is it? Hey, the ones who control the whistle control the rules, and that's no matter what it is in the courts or what have you. I just expect them to be who they are. I'm not surprised by it. Hey, listen, systemic racism is systemic racism. They can say it doesn't exist. I'll call them a goddamn lie. I've been on this rock for 55 years. I've been all over this planet. Certain things just are what they are. The biggest problem is we need to become Montgomery strong everywhere. What was that, 334? In that Montgomery to 334? We need to be 334 everywhere. Not necessarily violent, but you need to be willing to stand up and give up something in order to move the torch forward. And that's what was done. People say Montgomery, we and our ancestors were not Selma. But if Selma had acted like Montgomery acted in general, they'd have gotten slaughtered because the time was different. They had to get the pulse of not just the nation, they had to get the pulse of the world to change things. Because don't forget that this government, which is a government that I gave 8 years of my life to, sanctioned the behavior. So we got about a minute. And Aquaman worked for the doc. That's not why he came over. But he didn't come over because the guy was black. He came over to help his coworker. He was 16 years old and he worked for the doc. I don't know if you're not listening. He worked for the doc. The 16-year-old that was swimming worked for the doc. He worked there. He said he saw his coworker in trouble and he worked there. He went there to go help his coworker. Like the first young white guy that got gut punched. He worked there. Listen, it was. I'm getting ready to get here. It was definitely I wish a motherfucker would moment, and it did turn into a little bit different because the people who came down really wished that the motherfuckers would, and they did, and that was the response to it. No, some of that was pent up frustration. Some of that was frustration. Right. We all know that we would. We'll figure out what's going on later on. Exactly. Exactly. Hey, swimming takes a lot out of you. Hey, but one of the stereotypes that was killed was that we can't swim. We may not be able to float. I know Devin can do it all because he's in the Navy, but most people can't. A lot of people can't float, but a lot of us can swim. So he showed that we can swim. So hey, with that, I don't understand why we're debating why a guy defended himself. That's the wildest thing. I don't even understand why we're debating why he defended. Why did he do this? That motherfucker was defending himself. He threw off the hat. That that could have been a signal. He's not. He's not. You might have been into a lot of. Have you been into a lot of fights? He's not thinking about everybody recording. He's thinking that he's assessing the situation right in front of him. Right. He's not assessing who's watching. He don't care who's watching. That's not on his mind. He's worried about am I to get this dude a fade? Plus, we don't know what was being said between the two of them. No, it's not. Listen, it don't listen. It's like this about even with war. We had this notion that you can think about the things that you do. When you're in an instant, you're in the instant. Period. If you're fighting and you want to assess what they might do, you're probably going to end up on a losing side if they're in any way, shape, fashion, or form skilled enough to execute one move or two moves. You don't get that kind of time. And again, we don't. There's a whole lot of barking that went on, but we don't know what was said. Why he threw the hat and what have you has nothing to do with the fact that he knew that he had to defend himself. And that's what he got ready to do. But he also understood that he was outnumbered. But he did go ahead and engage with the one guy, the other guy hopped in. You don't have all this time to be assessing things. Everybody can be Monday morning quarterback. God damn it, I need your ass on Sunday. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Yeah. They could have been doing it as an off time off too. They could have been doing it as their what do you do when they do the extra overtime or whatever, they're not wearing a uniform, but they could still be officers. There's a lot of things that are going on, but one thing I ain't gonna never tell anybody to do is not defend yourself. And if nothing else, I know he did that. Now we were talking about all the other stuff that came as a result of it. We don't know what the atmosphere is in another city that you're not really in at the time. And we can all come up with a million different things that could go on or what we could have done in that situation. What's going on, Frank? I know Frank would have fought. Huh? No, not. I don't know him yet, but I'm sure that you can look him up. And again, I'd say this versus speculating, especially in this day and age, you can go find it. But if anybody, the people who've been charged, yeah, right, yeah, right. At the end of the day, why would you wait, hold on? Why would you assume that he had to do something to invoke or to provoke them when listen, man, these people ain't acting strange. And I posted this earlier this week. It's just getting hard. Them people ain't never liked you. It's just getting harder for them to hide it. You to say that he did something to them. He's in. If he's in security, right, and they left the boat unattended. But if he represents authority, it don't matter if he's black, white, green, blue, or purple, right? This notion that we have to capitulate to them in instances where we know we don't get that kind of gratuity. All right, it doesn't. That's not even feasible. If the motherfucker's in charge and tells you to move the boat and he's being polite, and you're hearing it from the goddamn ship out in the port, move your boat, and you say screw it, and the guy says hey, and he unties it and moves it out the way because the larger boats need to dock. You know, we have to be at least reasonable. I don't, even if he's okay. That maybe not doing the right thing provoked the situation. And amazing, but it's amazing. It's like I'm gonna say this. We hear all the time. We hear all the time. Why don't you just comply? Why don't you just comply? Why don't you just comply? Now we are reversing that. Where does that make sense? Just comply. Just comply. Just comply. That applies to them motherfuckers too. I tell people the hardest thing for me to do. Right. That's the part that I must be losing. It, I don't know of an average person with a boat that would think that the rules of that place are pretty much known. And what's surprising me is just rides around without having an idea. It doesn't mean that there's not. It doesn't mean there's not rules, bro. Nobody's to tell you not to go in nobody else's house. Certain things are understood. Yeah. We have what's expected. It's like a reasonable belief. This didn't happen. This is not a 1 day thing. This is an operation. That's why they have employees. It's an operation. And the amount of levity you give into those, the amount of levity you're giving to those people is kind of surprising to me. Because let me tell you something, privilege is real privilege. When people think they're privileged, I'm not talking about being biased. The bias is, oh, he's damn so totally, he's definitely totally in the wrong. But even if he thought he was right, once you were told by the authority to move, it's no listen. I may want to do something to some of the people who've done things to me. I know that I've been wrong by a couple of these people. It don't just mean I can go and hit them in the mouth as bad as I want to. I wish you would have done the right thing. But he talked to you like that. Right. When he talking to you. And even when you're in there improperly, I didn't call Victor a punk motherfucker, even though he can probably hear this right now and I'm talking about his ass. When I saw him, I actually saw him for the first time at the last city council meeting and walked up to him. First time we actually in the same building at the same time that I'm aware of for sure. And I'm actually irritated. And the mayor left after she presented the budget at 1.9 billion. But I'll talk about it. But I did say something for the first time. I'm in the room with the officer that falsely charged me. That's a given. The motherfucker lied. Things went across my mind when I'm standing in front of him. It just we have an idea of how things operate, bro. Especially when you've been on this rock a few times, and as you continue to breathe air, and we like to hope that it doesn't happen, but as long as you're in that skin you're in, you're gonna learn exactly how this thing works and how they're trying to get to go back to working. But we're still talking about with compliance. That motherfucker lied on me. I still turned myself in. That motherfucker lied on me. I still had to do discovery. Never before the boat gets back. Right. And there might not have been, and you don't know, there might not have been enough space to put the second boat there. Otherwise, they might have just set the boats on either side of the pontoon. Right. Not deep enough, right? They know way better than that. You said it right the first time. They probably I'm more one to believe based upon the gentleman's Facebook post on his own I'm not gonna say the name of his restaurant on that site where he said he didn't need none of y'all's money anyway. That he may have I'm more willing to believe he took umbrage at the fact that the brother told him any fucking thing. Just based on what I know from my cursory investigation of some of the facts. We did this before we did on the show last night, but people who act a certain way are that way. What did Maya Angelou say? When people show you who you are, believe them. And, right. Come on, Vider. Come on, Forsyth. Hey, listen. There's a time in Forsyth where the racial tension was real. Yeah, I'm sure it still is because everybody ain't dead. No, I'm sure it's still. It's not. Hey, listen. They ain't all dead. Yeah, they're not. Hey, listen. I just said they're not all dead. They didn't all die. It, I would say this because we got a couple more minutes before I go off with my blog talk. I don't want to what you call it. I don't want to run off and get kicked out. But I'm gonna say this, and I have calibrated myself quite a bit. But let's just be honest. Do you think that the same response or the same reaction to what I've raised issues about would be equally tolerated or be quelled as much if I didn't have the black skin that I do. How many white people do you think would be okay knowing that somebody stole 4 of their houses that are now worth $1.7 million and it not be national news? How many white men can say I was, and we can, the facts are there. A former sitting judge lied and colluded with and conspired with a police officer who the city had hired then and have now rehired to have somebody arrested, and then uses influence to convince the state attorney, who, even if the cop brought him a criminal report affidavit with false information, he knew it did not meet the necessary elements, didn't have the necessary elements to charge you with this crime. And we're going to push it for 7 months through 4 different judges, and then have to go and get another judge from another circuit by virtue of the power of the Florida Supreme Court to come in here and have him tell you all after 7 months. He asked the simple question, what's the official proceeding? Well, we don't have one. Well, wait a minute. What did he say? Well, we combine things. You charge this guy with nothing for no reason at all. And we now know that there's 7,000 missing emails. Do you really think that white America would tolerate that or sit idly by? And it's not fine, but be willing to either say I'm going to fight this, or I'm not that I'm all right with it. I'm just not going to make any noise about it. But again, I'm going to do what I do anyway. But I'm just saying, everybody else out there in TV land, blog talk land, Facebook land, and YouTube land, and any other goddamn land. If I were somebody other than me, and I had spent any time associated with those 2 individuals, there's no way in the hell that I'm not at least filing a motion, even if they may deem it frivolous, to say, I know that that guy did this in this instant. The proof is now there. I know that that guy did it and he arrested me or he investigated me. I want that. I want everything associated with that thrown out. State attorney, because I know that motherfucker is crooked. it, it, yeah, that's how I know it's fault. That's how I know it's flawed. And I'm just saying, I'm just putting out there where I'm putting it where the goats can get it. Forget me. I'm just saying, let's just be honest with each other. The same amount of reasons they can give, or why did you talk to him this way? They don't ask you that when they busting you upside your head. He didn't move. I went upside his head. And somebody said earlier on the call, we've had a Tamir Rice issue, we've had Trayvon, we've had any other number of people, and I'm sure there's some people of other persuasions as well. But we know about these situations. We had the gentleman in Minnesota, not George Floyd, the other gentleman who was in the car, who said, I got a gun, and a cop shot him. Castile. And we act like these things didn't happen. And we have qualified immunity. We have qualified immunity in this country. Why? Because it protects cops that may be very negligent. And they'll claim, so long as they're doing it in the course and scope of their employment, they have immunity, even if they're negligent. You got to show that they're malicious in Florida. And that's 768.289A. But at any rate, that's not legal advice either. But go look it up. So these high thresholds exist. Why? Because people vote for people who won't just say, we're going to just rewrite the law. That's why we're where we are. Yeah, we're not participating in the process is going to change it. And again, I didn't vote for a lot of motherfuckers. It won't keep me from writing them a letter. Won't keep me from making a phone call. It won't keep me from filing lawsuits. It won't keep me from filing motions. But you can't make everybody else do it. Again, I need my Montgomery folks. I need 334 in the 813. I need 334 in the 727. I need 334 in the 904, in the 863, and anything else that I'm damn missing. Sitting here and giving people a break when they're mistreating you every day is beyond me. I'm not wired that way. And if I'm speaking quickly, you got to excuse the Geechee and me in the gullet, but I ain't built for that shit at all. But that being said, appreciate everybody out there. Sometimes it's not about right or wrong. More importantly, it's about clarity. You never reach resolution if you're not willing to engage in honest dialogue, even if that dialogue is with yourself. Take time to hug the person you love and love the person you hug. On behalf of WEDZ Radio, Chop Shop, GDNAPSC, all the sponsors, I'm Greg Doss. I'm DJ Squid. I'm saying peace. I'm saying chicken grease, and I'm out.